Hello everyone, and welcome back. With analog horror covering a multitude of different genres and properties, to the point, one might even call it oversaturated, I thought today we could brush all that aside and take a look at a specific subgenre of analog horror, that being the one involving killers. Typically, these analog horrors can feel a little repetitive, with the story moving quite slowly, and the content mostly consisting of police reports where the victims were found lifeless with their teeth smashed in and their balls missing. And no, that's not specifically a shot at urban spook, but rather the genre as a whole. Now, this analog horror does have elements of that, I won't lie, but I wouldn't say it's the main focus. And I will say, this isn't an analog horror for the purists, as it does have some paranormal elements. But I haven't seen the antagonist do anything that's completely out of the realm of possibility yet, and I'd consider it more of a serial killer analog horror in terms of how it's structured. But before we get to all that, let's make time for a brief message from the series for today's video is called Macabre. And no, not the Macabre experiment. Also, I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. I've heard macabre is generally how it's said, but I don't want to say it like that. The series itself contains 4 main videos released so far, and 2 trailers. However, I don't consider the trailers canon, as the quality and vibe differs from the main videos. 4 main videos may not seem like a lot, but they surprisingly have a lot of substance to them. We'll dissect each one of them one by one, and at the end of it all, I'll attempt to explain everything chronologically, as well as throw out any theories I might have about the series as a whole, and where I think it's going. You ready? Cool. Let's begin. The first video released goes by Macabre, Unnerving Discovery. In the description we see the text, "Tapes found by Emma Bain." All of the descriptions are some variation of this. Now, right off the bat, I want to stress that the timeline does get a bit fucky, so I'll try to make it clear when exactly things are happening. It begins with some text giving us context for the footage we're about to see. On July 17th, 1993, Mr. Castillo would investigate an incident occurring on April 15th, 1993. Jennifer Thompson would call the company behind her home security cameras of a matter regarding her security cameras losing signal when she was away on her business trip. When Mr. Castillo arrived at the 2765 Elmwood Avenue address on Webbler Crossing, he found a few items that were not shown in the footage that is about to be shown. Those items are a broken HSC, a Kids Quarter Blue Edition, and 16 baby teeth. Bro, Mr. Castillo puts those under his pillow. He could clear like $30. Easy. Okay, so here is where it gets a little complicated. As far as I understand, the initial incident of the home security cameras going out occurred on April 15th, 93. And this investigation done by Castillo took place 3 months later on July 17th, 1993. And the footage we're about to see is actually not Mr. Castillo, but rather a new character named Connor on April 17th, 2 days after the cameras went out. You follow all that, right? In the footage, we hear Connor enter the house, and there's some unnerving music playing. After fumbling around in the dark for a bit, he tries to flip on a light, but the switch doesn't work. Further into the house, he comes across a window that has been broken into, and we see text saying "entry point," likely put there by the police reviewing the tape. Now, after this, we get an overlay of the kitchen camera footage showing the killer breaking into the home, but there is a slight issue. The date on this footage is July 15th, and I'm honestly not entirely sure if that's intentional and it's meant to be April, but I'll take the more favorable route here and say that this is intentional. I mean, it seemed pretty easy to break in the first time, why not try it again 3 months later? The footage continues with more of the house shown in disarray, and we begin to hear the sound of a child crying. It's not clear whether or not this is coming from an actual child or the blue Kids Quarter that was clearly stated not to be in the footage, but I digress. A brief glitch occurs where we hear the cameraman say something to the effect of "oh shit," as he comes across a very bloodied sink containing a knife and, oof, an eyeball. A scream is heard and the camera cuts out. As the footage comes to a close, we see an image of a mask as well as a face burn onto the screen. After the footage cuts out, we see an ad for something known as Blockbuster Video, and before the next commercial, for a brief frame, we see 4th of July celebration. Whether or not this means anything at all, or was just left in, I could not tell you. What I can tell you is that the next ad is for a brand known as Kids Tech, no doubt related to the Kids Quarter. But before we see what that's about, it gets interrupted by an emergency alert, and I don't care if it's overused, I love a good analog horror emergency alert. It's a bit ambiguous as to when this is broadcasting, but due to the fact that it mentions Webbler Crossing, it's safe to assume April 15th. The report mentions 11 homes being broken into, and 5 minors being abducted, with an unknown suspect that some claimed to be wearing a blue suit. The final shot of the video is the fucking blue kids quarter. You said it wasn't in the footage, bro. You said it wasn't in the footage. Following all that is our next video, Macabre, Contact with Suspect. And in the description, we see that again this tape was found by Emma Bain, but a year is given, 2006. The video opens on a 911 call and a still image of a staircase with something blacked out. It appears to be a body. The caller seems concerned about a man standing outside of his house, and honestly, the operator is a little rude.
He's just standing out on our lawn.
What is the address you are needing assistance at?
2197 Webbler Avenue.
Okay.
The caller mentions that he's been standing outside there for an hour and hasn't approached the house, and describes the man as being well dressed in a suit jacket and pants, but can't make out the person's face due to lighting or it being covered. It cuts to some text describing a different case. We've acquired 1 cassette tape last night. We plan to go back at some point tonight in hopes of finding more evidence that we can look at. From the context of the audio tape, Jay Plymouth had went to the Baines house on the 11th. 4 days have went by. Her parents say she's still not home. The audio tape then plays, and we hear Plymouth mention that it's May 11th, 1990, and she has been cleaning out the Baines family home, pointing out that it was really creepy and cold inside the house, despite it being spring, and she follows this up with saying she would never want to go back to the house. The audio tape, as well as the footage, glitches, and we get our first jump scare of the video.
But we had to empty it, and it was really creepy. There was just this weird vibe there. I don't know. I'd never want to go back, that's for sure. I'd never want to go back. I'd never want to go back. I'd never want to go back. Go back, go back, go back, go back.
In the midst of this jump scare, we can see "that became untrue" written out 4 times. Regarding the face, it's ambiguous as to whether or not it's Plymouth or something else. The rest of the tape plays out with her stating that she'll be back to update later with how her Saturday went. A picture of her is then shown, with person of interest as well as the goal of locating Jay Plymouth and searching for evidence. Be wary of your surroundings, and try not to cause a disturbance in the public. Tape log has now ended. The screen fades to blue, and we get more text overlaid, but this text is in a different color, and takes on a more personal tone. I went to the house. There were no signs of Jenica, nor were there any signs of her potential remains. I was able to receive 1 cassette tape from the house along with a camera with 2 images on it. The audio is then played.
Okay, first why would I even remember what day it is, but I went back to the house because I thought I forgot something, and I shouldn't have gone back. I can't get out.
I will present the 2 images. Before I do, one thing needs to be clear. She was a relative of mine, so explain. Who is that? The tape then ends, and we get a continuation of the 911 call from earlier, with more information regarding the caller, where he states he's locked all the doors, and he's at home with his wife and daughter. However, he loses track of the suspect.
Do you have anybody else who lives at your house?
I have a wife and a 4-year-old girl, but they're sleeping right now.
Do you know where he's at now?
No. How much longer?
Officers are making their way over there.
What the fuck?
Sir?
He just threw a brick through my girl's window. Hey! Get the fuck on somewhere!
What the fuck?
After this, we seem to get a new log about another case being investigated on March 3rd by someone named Lenny Smith. The entry log regarding murder, stalking, burglary, and abuse of a corpse. However, this part is redacted. Suspect identity unknown. Video evidence captured by C. We then see some green footage and hear a conversation. It's hard to hear, so I'll put some subtitles of what I believe they're saying.
Been here 2 days. There's really nothing out here. Coming here kind of seems pointless now.
We see them dive deeper into the building they're in, and we get some text giving us further context. Connor described the room to have an extreme odor of rotting meat. After a long and thorough analysis of the tape, there didn't seem to be anybody else in the building, besides for the unidentified individual and Connor. It's difficult to find a connection between our suspect and the individual on camera. We plan on doing an extensive investigation on this tape to determine who we are dealing with. Lenny Smith, 1982. Couple things we can take from this. First off, the name Connor. This is the same name as the person who filmed the footage in 1993, and based on how that ended, Connor is likely dead. And since this quote is from 1982, we can assume Connor and this individual have been at odds, so to speak, for over 10 years. Before we cut away from this, Inhuman briefly flashes above the word individual. After realizing that maybe they shouldn't be exploring this creepy abandoned building, Connor makes a smart decision and starts to leave.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
But unfortunately, the killer is already onto him and makes himself known, wearing the same stinky bodysuit he'll be wearing 8 years later. Connor continues to run, and honestly, this thing has some crazy parkour skills. The footage freezes and we see that Connor does make it out, albeit with an injured finger. After this, we cut through a commercial for something called mayonnaise, and before the video ends, we see a missing person announcement for Jenica Plymouth, last seen at Farfield Catholic Church, Indiana. So this video covered 3 different cases, with one taking place in 1990, the other in 1982, and one at an unknown date. But we can assume this one to be in 1993, due to the caller mentioning Webler Avenue. One last thing before getting to the next video is Jenica was said to have been cleaning out the Baines home, and the only other time we see this last name is in the descriptions, where Emma Bain is stated as being the one who found these tapes, so they definitely are related in some way. The third video is titled Audio Lure, and has the same description as the previous video. It begins with a guide on how to use an audio lure. Audio Lure Guide, 1987. Audio can be triggered remotely. If something abnormal is visible, trigger audio. This will draw whatever to the sound. Draw whatever? What do you mean whatever? Remote is in the office cabinet. Please return when done with observation. Audio can be triggered automatically as well. Once HSC senses movement, audio lure will play. This is the second time we hear HSC mentioned, the first being in Unnerving Discovery, where a broken one was discovered in the house being broken into. This begs the question if the being was somehow lured to the home. Although the presence of an HSC doesn't entirely mean that an audio lure was present, however, music is playing in that original footage, but it's coming from the kids' quarter, and whether or not that is considered an audio lure is not clear. We also don't know what HSC stands for, but with context, it's either a camera or a sensor. We then see locations where this particular investigation will be conducted. The first being a forest, which we will see shortly, the second a school, and the third one is redacted. I don't know exactly what they're trying to lure, but I'm guessing it's not birds. Footage begins playing of someone in one of the investigation sites, where it looks like just a casual stroll. The cameraman doesn't seem to be aware of the investigation, because when they do hear the audio lure, they start to look for it, not privy to what's causing it. The audio lure audio playing is Gossenhauer by Carl Orff. It was listed in the description, so I thought I'd mention it. He continues to follow the audio, and eventually comes across the entrance to a drain. And sure, let's follow the creepy audio into the sewer, who gives a fuck anymore? Also, 5 minutes pass, and it's suddenly nighttime. But they do seem to be on the right path, as the audio is significantly louder in the sewer. And around 10 minutes pass, and it becomes even louder, and I mean way, way louder. Fast forward 30 more minutes, and they're back outside, with the audio no longer playing.
It stopped.
They look like they're seeing something and running towards it, but I couldn't really see anything, so I don't know if I'm just missing it. Around 25 minutes later, the audio starts up again, slightly glitchier.
What the fuck?
Close to 2 hours later, we see him running scared and freaking out, now being lost deeper within the forest.
Stop! Shut it off!
Lost.
Bro, calm down. It's just Karl Orff Gossenhauer. 5 hours then pass and he's still lost in the forest. But then a new different audio begins to play.
Hello?
Hey! Hello?
This is just super creepy. The combination of an empty forest with audio of a crowded room is honestly a masterclass in scary atmosphere. As the video comes to a close, the protagonist begins heavily breathing, and we actually do barely see something this time. A tiny goblin hand reaches around the tree, before quickly pulling back. Jesus Christ. With the rules for these audio lures being established in the beginning, I can't help but wonder if this audio switch-up was an automatic thing, or if it was triggered by someone. The latest video released, and the final one we'll be taking a look at today, is Audio Lure 2, found by Emma Bain in 2005. It begins off with the first instance of something that I'd say is explicitly paranormal in the series. I guess other than the little goblin. Some ghostly red text appears in front of a still image and reads as follows. Up here I'm trapped. The last place my memory rests. My own ignorance of the unknown has put me in this situation. My presence is confined here. To dwell and rest. I shouldn't have gone back. It's pretty much confirmed by that last line that this is Jenica Plymouth, eternally stuck inside of the Baines house. It does make me wonder when exactly this is, though. At least she's got a nice view. The actual footage part of this video starts off pretty much the same as the previous, with audio playing and a cameraman exploring. I want to say this is a different cameraman, because they seem a lot less timid than the last one and react to the audio lure with surprise, signifying it's their first time experiencing something like this. As they explore, they come across this innocuous skeleton just sitting there. And I like the way this is framed because it almost seems like it's moving. Or maybe it is. The building itself seems to be run down and super decrepit. And because the last one took place in a specific location that was listed, this could be the redacted area that was blacked out. Also, adorned across the walls are some lovely messages such as I heart MILFs and free BJs. From who? That guy? Looks like this is the place to be. As they're looking for the source of the audio, they come across a discarded clown mask laying on top of a pile of rubble, and the camera glitches and cuts to them climbing on top of this center structure. And I don't know if it's just me, but I'd be more scared of falling through the floor than any clown or skeleton that might pop up. Eventually they find where the sound is coming from and set the camera down, lingering on the clown mask for an eerily long time as they fiddle with the audio lure. But they do manage to shut it off. After he shuts it off, he starts to explore further into the building, and look at that, he doesn't check if the skeleton is still there. He checks the second room, the one that had nothing in it, but he just breezes past the first one. And buddy, that was obviously a person. You should have left. Anyone chilling in this shithole wearing a skull mask is not your friend. And as they near a barred off exit door, can you guess what happens?
Why would I turn that shit off?
They run back to see what could have turned the audio back on, and see this guy wearing the clown mask. As the footage glitches, we see a skull overlaid on the left side. He starts to run away, and one thing I really do appreciate about the chase sequences in this analog horror is these guys actually gain on the person running. It is literally right behind him as he runs. The camera freezes up and starts to fade to black, and right before the video ends, we hear the familiar jingle from the Kids Tech commercial. every video now covered, let's jump straight into the timeline. I won't do as much speculation as I usually do to the events prior to the main story starting, because we don't really know much about it. Anyways, here we go. The earliest thing we have thus far is in 1982, where an investigation is seemingly launched into an unknown entity by Lenny Smith. Lenny Smith focuses his investigation into a specific individual named Connor, who has history with this killer, and it looks like he's actually sent to this site to investigate by Lenny, as Connor is speaking to someone at the start of it. The tape Connor filmed is then analyzed, but nothing seems to come of it. Our next event happens in 1987, 5 years later, but I think it's very likely in the time between that the audio lure, HSC, and Kids Tech are all created, as they are very prevalent following. In 1987, a guide is released for the audio lure, likely connected to an investigation. Unfortunately, two individuals unrelated to this come in contact with the audio lure, unbeknownst to its existence or purpose. It's somewhat likely that these two are no longer with us. Things begin to ramp up in 1990 when 19-year-old Jenica Plymouth becomes trapped inside the Baines house after returning to finish cleaning it. Sadly, this would become her final resting place as she comes in contact with the killer, her soul remaining there for the foreseeable future. We finally arrive in 1993, where a majority of the events take place. On April 15th, 11 homes are broken into and 5 minors are abducted around Webbler Crossing and Webbler Avenue. An emergency alert goes out and reports the assailant as wearing a blue suit. This is also confirmed in a 911 call, taking place on the same night. This is also the same night Jennifer Thompson's security cameras would go out. 2 days later, on April 17th, the same Connor we see in 1982, working with the police in some capacity, visits Jennifer's home, and is subsequently killed. Fast forward to July, and on the 15th, the killer seems to break in again, and on the 17th, Mr. Castillo would begin his investigation. And the very final thing we have is in 2005 to 2006, Emma Bain would find all of these tapes that we've been seeing, possibly in the same home Jenica had gone missing in. So, with all that said, I guess there's a couple things to address. The first thing we should look into is the monster itself. I don't actually know if it's a monster, the creator does refer to it as such, but I'd like to posit a theory. I think that it might be a human being controlled by something greater, maybe granted abilities or altered by a stronger entity. It just looks too humanoid for me to consider it a monster. As to why they're kidnapping kids, probably sacrifice. And another thing is, given all the different masks we've seen, it could mean that there are multiple of them, serving something greater. And that leads into the next thing I want to address, Kids Tech and the Kids Tech products. I believe if it was a large network of these killers, they would be able to form a company to create or fund all these products. This is further supported by the affinity they seem to have for them. I'm unsure if the audio lure is one of these products, as it seems to be more used by the police to attract these killers. But the kids' quarter also seems to be a repurposed version of it. The police themselves seem to know more than is let on, so I'd expect that to be more delved into in the future. Lastly, let's talk about this little hand that appears. I have no clue. Honestly, it just could be an animal. Or, hear me out, all these guys are being controlled by little gnomes. In all seriousness though, go check out the original series. I really like it so far, and I think it's massively underrated. If I were to throw out a guess what the next video might be, it would be Audio Lure 3, covering the third site. And I'm glad you made it this far. I appreciate it. I hope to see you next time.